I'm Dina Soliman. I'm head of marketing here at Queensway Group, which owns the Point A Hotels brand. I started in hospitality a few years back when I worked with IHG as European brand director, and I fell in love with the sector. Then I joined Queensway Group in January 2017 to help develop and launch the Point A Hotel brand. So let me tell you a little bit about Point A Hotels. It's a very young brand. We launched the brand only in March 2017, so very early days. However, we were very clear on our brand promise and what value we're bringing into the market space. We've done our homework, so we've spoken to a lot of guests, and we believe that there is an opportunity there for a hotel brand to bring heartfelt hospitality back into the affordable segment. Consumers felt that the affordable segment was very transactional and pure functional, and it was missing the human connection. So Point A Hotel brand bring together access to the best neighborhoods and locations. We bring the best product, no compromise on quality, great mattresses, power showers, fast and free Wi-Fi, so all the essentials that you would need as a guest. And on top of that, you do definitely get proper service and great hospitality. So obviously for any brand, it's very important to have consistency in delivering the product as well as the service aspect. And how you measure that is what defines your ability to respond to it. So we have different locations, mostly in London. We have 6 hotels in London and 1 in Glasgow. So it was critical to us to be able to measure the guest feedback consistently across the board. One of the tools we use is NPS, so Net Promoter Score, which is obviously a very well-known metric, and it's the one criteria that we look at most importantly to see whether we are delivering on our brand promise consistently. So having this ability to have standardized matrices across all of our properties is hugely important to us. TripAdvisor obviously is a hugely important aspect of any hotel. Managing your online reputation not only gives you the ability to better your service, but actually gives you access to consumers, because nobody nowadays books a hotel without checking reviews. We're living in a trust economy. People rely on other people's reviews to trust. They no more rely on the brand's own promise alone. They check that and they validate it from guests. So TripAdvisor obviously is hugely important. As a young brand, you're still defining yourself and evolving as you go along. And you cannot do that purely by looking internally. You have to gather information and insight from your guests. So how do you get that in a consistent way and in real time that would allow you to evolve and respond to your guests in timely manner? So we didn't have a platform to do that, which is why we started looking for what platforms are out there that could help us gather this insight. So we looked at what different platforms are out there. GuestRevu was one of the platforms that we looked at. We looked at the 3 criteria that we were measuring those different platforms on, and GuestRevu came across as superior for our needs across those metrics. One was simplicity, so our ability to look at our business in a snapshot through a simple dashboard that's intuitive. Our operational team would be able to look at it at a glance and know whether they're delivering or if there's something that needs addressing. Obviously, responsiveness and customer service, and I have to say GuestRevu has been fantastic, very timely. Every time there's nothing that's too much trouble, they're always at the end of the phone, and they always deliver on time and always in contact with us. So we've been very happy with that. And thirdly, obviously value for money. No business will look at a different platform without calculating whether the value for money is there. And across the 3 metrics, simplicity, responsiveness, and customer service, as well as affordability, GuestRevu was superior in our mind. Guest feedback is very central to everything we do. It's the voice of the guest, and that's hugely important to any decision that we take. So guest review and the guest feedback is used on daily basis, both on property as well as on aggregate head office level. So on property, our teams, when they do their daily huddles, when they do their handovers, they look at the critical metrics and they look at guest review to tell them if there's been anything that needs addressing. Guest feedback is hugely important from a group level as well. So we look at our brand promise and whether it's being delivered on property through our guest feedback. And that helps us make decisions also for the future. So for example, we look at our next generation bedroom. What does it look like? What facilities do we have to have in place? And when we analyze the guest feedback, it gives us very clear idea what the brief to our designers would be like. So that is one way of, for example, of using the voice of the guest through guest review. So obviously we're a very customer-centric business. People is central to everything we do. We're in the service industry. So without our ability to measure and respond to guest feedback, we wouldn't be able to evolve as a brand. As I mentioned, we're a young brand, so we had a very clear vision of what we wanted to be when we launched. However, we have next generation product and we evolve our brand proposition depending on what guests tell us. And to give specific examples, one of the things we were always debating with whether to put tea and coffee facilities in the room. There is a perception in the business that tea and coffee facility is absolutely essential. However, we wanted to validate that. So we looked at guest review to tell us whether the numbers and the share of guests who actually require that is significant. And the answer was clear. So there was no debate anymore because we were able to validate that quantitatively through the voice of the guest and not through any personal opinion. And one of the things that enables us to constantly improve is listening to the guests. And through guest review feedback, we realized that people care very much about the environment. A Hotel brand guests tend to be more environmentally conscious than the average consumer. So that actually was a major decision in when we evolved our breakfast proposition. We took away as much as possible any plastic packaging, anything that is deemed to be environmentally unfriendly by our guests. And that came through from listening to the voice of the guest. They told us they do not want to see plastic in our to-go packaging for the breakfast offering. So that is a clear example of how by listening to the guest and paying attention to what matters to them, you can evolve your product and your service, and you're constantly in tune with what the customer wants and what the market is evolving towards. It's always interesting to listen to what is most important to the guests, and not just what's important, but what surprises them and what delights them. So one of our big things is lighting. We are very big on lighting. We have mood lighting in all our bedrooms, although we're in the affordable segment, but we don't necessarily want to compromise on the guest experience. And it was interesting how many times our guests mentioned mood lighting and how this was a kind of a sprinkle on the whole stay that allowed them to be playful, to tailor the lighting to their mood, and it just created a very different level of experience. And that insight we wouldn't have been able to get except from the analysis that we do and looking at what exactly lands and resonates with our guests. Obviously, one of the things that we wanted to make sure when we were looking at the different platforms and which one to go with was our ability to train and make it accessible to the teams, whether on property or here at head office. And the great thing working with Guest Revu's team was that they were pretty much available at any time, but also that we were able to deliver great training just through Skype, and our ability to share the screens and just get the teams in the room to try different things and create the different dashboards and reports was great because it was accessible and it was easy enough to replicate whether on property or at head office. Obviously, a platform or a system doesn't have a purpose if it's not used. And the great thing about GuestRevu is that at point A, we use it on a daily basis. It's pretty much in our daily processes, it's in our language. We use it on property, as I mentioned, in the handovers or in the daily huddles with the team, but also in the HLT, our hotels leadership team, when we meet every Monday, we make sure that we go through our reports, and one of the biggest metric that we always look at is what guest feedback have we received over this last week, whether aggregate as a group or on property level. Point A Hotel is a very customer-centric business, so which is why we partnered with a platform like GuestRevu, and we are embracing that in our daily business, and we make sure that we use the insight that we get to better our service. One of the things we've done, for example, is train our team, so our ability to respond to guest feedback on TripAdvisor, for example, and other platforms has been enhanced and was made easier by aggregating all these different reviews into one interface. So our teams don't necessarily have to go through different platforms to respond to guest feedback. They can do that through the one interface because GuestRevu enables to aggregate that. And we make sure that we do a monthly audit to make sure that the reviews are responded to. We have a 48 hours kind of brand standard. Teams have to respond to that. And also the tone of voice, our brand language. Are we bringing to life our brand promise through the reviews? And that definitely has been helped by the facility of the interface with GuestRevu. Queensway and Point A Hotels is a very forward-thinking brand. We're constantly evolving. We constantly look at what's new in technology and how it can facilitate not just our team's work and make them more efficient, but also, most importantly, the guest experience. How can we make it seamless? How we can eliminate any hurdles and problems that comes in the way of their stay. So obviously, one of the things that we care about is our ability to work together as a team. There are different systems that we work with and different partners. And GuestRevu has been working very well, very collaboratively with the different partners that we have on the other systems to get the APIs done and to get the integration done across the board so that we are able to look at our business in a single customer view that would allow us to deliver the brand promise. I would definitely say that any hotel business should have a platform that would enable them to listen to the voice of the customer. You should definitely evaluate that based on your customer needs and your business cycle. For us, GuestRevu worked perfectly well, and I wouldn't hesitate to recommend them as a partner. They have been fantastic, service-minded, and have been very collaborative with us. So definitely a good partner to work with.